Hello, my name is Haley, and I will be presenting on microdosing. What are the mental health benefits to microdosing? So first, what is microdosing? Microdosing is the consumption of a low dose of a psychedelic substance, typically being psilocybin mushrooms or LSD, on a regular basis. What are the therapeutic effects for microdosing? Increase in creativity, productivity, social ability, focus, analytic thinking, problem solving, cognition, positive mood, enhanced memory attention, mindfulness, general well-being, depression, and anxiety. So what is the science behind microdosing? What is happening in the brain when you microdose? So the default mode network, DMN, this is a part of your brain that is active when you're not doing anything. It is tied to daydreaming, replaying memories, imagining the future, or listening to the little voice in our heads. While baseline levels of DMN actively are totally normal, on overactive DMN often translates into repetitive thoughts, loops, circular thinking, and fixation. It's a biological bias for limiting beliefs, being in a rut and inside-the-box thinking. Taking psychedelics turn off that default mode network. Why does it disrupt the default mode network? When one regularly microdoses, the 5-HT2A receptor is activated on a consistent basis. Microdosing interrupts those patterns while simultaneously fostering new neural connections. As a result, it becomes easier to create new habits, new beliefs, and new ideas, putting us in our flow state. So how do you microdose? Typically, it's taken in the morning, depending on your schedule of how you want to take it, and of course, what you want to improve it. These are typically what the different schedules that people do. Continue. So how did microdosing become popular? It first became popular from James Fadiman. He's a PhD. He did psychedelic research in the 60s. He co-founded Transpersonal Psychology, and he published his book Psychedelic Explorer's Guide in 2011, where he first introduces microdosing. Does microdosing actually have the effects that are so commonly claimed? How much of the effects might just be placebo effects related to the strong positive expectations that... Relatedly, it's the case with Fadiman's book. In the increasing media coverage, people are becoming more heavily biased to accept positive effects. Everywhere online, you're seeing that people report how it helped them overcome their depression, their anxiety, or their addiction, or help boost their productivity to find new creative solutions to problems. Then of course you're going to have very high expectations. The scientific research for microdosing, and that we'll get into that, is the important distinctions right out the gate is between observational studies and double-blind randomized placebo-controlled trials. So, the observational research so far today have found that subjects report significant improvements in a variety of measures of mood, well-being, and cognition. Another study found that microdosers reported improved mood, decreased anxiety, and enhanced memory attention and sociability. However, these studies included no measure of what expectation individuals had and whether this was correlated with improvements. Tackling this is a research observational study. They asked subjects about their expectations similar to the other two subjects in this study reported. Improvements on various measures including well-being, depression symptoms, anxiety symptoms, social connectedness, nature relatedness, and more. However, and this is the important part, their pre-assessed expectations were significantly predicted of these improvements. That is, the more that they expected to improve, the more that they improved. So this correlation suggests the presence of a significant placebo effect in these subjects and calls into question the interpretation that the drug effect is driving the improvements itself. One last observational study put some complexity like the others. This study found that microdosing led to self-reported improvements in a whole variety of measures. However, this study had a notable additional finding. The study also asked subjects about their expectations and had an interesting finding that people were very bad at predicting how they would improve. In general, the results showed that people had very high expectations for most of the measures. This study therefore goes a bit against the last one I mentioned and provides evidence that microdosing might be more than just expectation effects. at the same time suggests that people have inaccurate beliefs and expectations about how microdosing will affect them. The studies that do include a placebo group, there were only 3 microdosing studies that did all of this with LSD, and they administered a standardized dose in a lab environment. The first of these measures and compare the subjective effects of 6.5, 13, and 26 micrograms of LSD in healthy subjects. For reference, a standard microdose of LSD is around 10 to 15 micrograms. This wasn't really a microdosing study like the others, and was more of a basic study looking at whether people would feel anything at these dosages, and therefore used a bit more of a limited set of measures. All in all, to put it briefly, the study indicated very subtle to no effects of LSD microdosing on mood or cognition performance when compared to placebo. A second study of the same group looked at the effects of 5, 10, and 20 micrograms of LSD in an older adult population to gauge safety for using LSD to treat Alzheimer's. They reported that listing microdosing was indeed safe in this population, and that led to negligible subjective effects compared to placebo. A third study that used the placebo-controlled design investigated whether microdoses of LSD can increase the presence of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, aka BDNF, a protein involved in neuroplasticity. This study found that BDNF was increased after 5 microdose and 20 microdose of LSD around 5 hours after ingestion. This suggests that microdoses, like full macrodoses, may be able to boost neuroplasticity in the brain. A recent study, however, did just that. They used a really clever approach and conducted what essentially a placebo-controlled observational study. The study is arguably the strongest microdosing study to date and evaluate whether microdosing effects are better than placebo. When microdosing is done in real life according to common dosing protocols, this study is described as a self-blinding citizen science study, and that while the researchers told the participants what to do and provided access to online questionnaires to collect data, and participants conducted it all from their own homes themselves. The study had participants create a set of microdosing themselves in the capsules. Participants followed a schedule with a microdose or a placebo dose 4 times a week, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday and Friday, for 4 weeks straight, and outcomes were measured every week. The results of the study indicated that subjects reported significant increases in well-being, mindfulness, life satisfaction, and the personality domain of openness. However, none of these increases were significantly different than placebo. This means that all of the significant improvements were also observed in people who thought that they were microdosing when really they were taking empty capsules. This suggests that the effects reported by people who microdose are just the result of positive expectations and the consequent placebo response. So to quote the researchers, these results strongly suggest that the actual content of capsules did not determine differences between the conditions for beliefs about their content did. So there are a few limitations to keep in mind. First, subjects varied any specific drug they took, although it was mostly psilocybin or LSD. Second, it's important to know the purity of the actual doses that were used. It was obtained, or if it was obtained from illicit sources. Third, at the end of the day, it's impossible to know whether subjects follow the protocol as they're supposed to. There is an element of trust involved. However, it's worth pointing out that these first 2 limitations indicate that although the study might not be reliable assessments or controlled clinical efficiency, they do provide an accurate assessment of microdosing as it's practiced in real life, which is what people are referring to when they're speaking about microdosing anyway. In conclusion, therefore, it seems that microdosing leads to a variety of improvements in individuals' being mood, well-being, and cognition. However, the evidence to date strongly suggests that all, if not most of these effects are placebo. Something subjective of a real effect was a study showing increases in the marker of neuroplasticity, brain-derived neurotrophic factor after microdosing LSD. To me, that suggests that microdosing may prove to have a greater positive effect relative to placebo when it's combined with a specific intervention. For example, if microdosing is combined with meditation or mindfulness practice, or even just a conscious intention to create new habits or to let go of old ones. Boost in neuroplasticity for microdosing may synergize and lead to faster or better outcomes. More research is definitely needed in how microdosing may complement or synergize with other practices or psychotherapeutic interventions. Thank you, everyone, and that was my presentation on microdosing.